hospital outcomes. And every single year they put out like a different report on like the birth outcomes or whatever. There's about, from the last report, there's about 38,000 home births a year in the United States, right? So it's not a huge amount.
That's still a lot more than I thought.
But still a lot, right? Right, yeah. And so I think they estimate for every 100, I wrote an article about it. Let me just see if I can pull it up because I had some statistics on it that I was preparing for the show. It's way more like risky to give birth at home, and it's way more risky to give birth at home if you don't have any sort of help, right? So the death for a woman is 3 times greater if she gives birth at home than if she were to give birth in a hospital. So,
right.
For like 1 in every like 1,000, so like for a woman at a hospital, I believe it's like 1.3 deaths per 1,000 or something. And then it's like 3.7 or something per 1,000 for home birth. I can't remember the exact numbers. And it ends up being about like, it's a lot, right? It's a 3 times difference. And if you kind of add that up over the 38,000 that they have, it's a lot of deaths, right? Home birthers will say, well, there's so many factors that play into death and blah, 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 and more people die in the hospital. Well, the fact is that a lot of the deaths that are reported in the hospital could very well have occurred because the woman was transferred from a home birth and died at the hospital.
Right. And you have a graph really hard to show for that too, I think.
The graph. So the big thing that these home birthers are all about is that, childbirth is like how we're built, and we're supposed to our bodies are supposed to get through this without any issues, and we're built for this, right? This graph is an outline of what has happened to the mortality rate of women who have had babies in the United States since the United States started reporting mortality rates for pregnant women. In the 1920s, when they first started reporting, over 600 women per 100,000 births died. This was before we had standards of care, before women gave birth in hospitals, before, we had interventions to help get babies out. And if you look at the graph, it's the top one. Sorry. I'm pointing to my screen. It's the top line. And so you see that it peaks and then it slowly starts to come down, right? And so it goes only into the 1950s, but, this was only looking at a short period of time, kind of understanding the United States had a period in time where we had a lot more deaths of women that were having babies. And we still do. We're still one of the highest rates for women to die during childbirth in developed nations. But we're way better than we used to. I mean, we're not, 600 women per 100,000 aren't dying anymore. It's not even close.
Well, I was just going to say on that statistic where people are saying more people die in hospitals, that's probably because more people are smart enough to go to hospitals in the first place.
Well, it's not even, no. So more women don't die in the hospital. Well, women die.
But from a statistical standpoint,
yeah,
there's going to be more deaths in hospital because more people don't, that's like saying it's like most people go to hospitals to have children. That's
right.
That's a statistical fact. So if people are going to die from childbirth, most of them are going to be in hospitals.
So in 2015, there was 38,542 women that opted to have a child at home. Okay. And in that, so they did a study that completed by the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology in 2017 indicated that infants born at home have a higher incident of mortality than those born in a hospital. The study reviewed births spanning multiple years and included 75,000 home births and 1 million hospital births. The finding of the studies found that the mortality rates were 9.35 deaths per 10,000 for a home birth versus 3.59 for 10,000 for a hospital birth. So it's like I said, it's like 2.6 times greater. So if you take like 9.35 times 10, 90 women per 100,000 women that home birth die. That's a lot.
That is a lot. That's a really high number, and it's a lot more than it needs to be. Like, these to me are senseless deaths, and to me, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't think that somebody. Well,
that was infant mortality rate, not women. Sorry, but still, that's like 90 children die from these births.
What is your feeling? Like, to me, I don't think that if you make a decision to forego medical treatment and have a birth in a hospital, I don't think that you're fit to raise kids. Like, if you can make that kind of decision before they're even born, like, I don't feel comfortable with you making decisions that, in parenting and raising a child.
In this woman's decision making, like in the screenshots that I read, I mean, she's just impractical. She wasn't going to diaper the baby. The baby was going to pee on a pot. And she was going to let it lay naked with her and co-sleep at night and let her pee on pads. And, she wasn't going to vaccinate the child. The child was going to live in, off the grid without electricity or running water. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm sure that's how she grew up, right? In her cushy little, California life. No, like, she's going for the complete opposite. And the fact that, I don't know, she was so arrogant to do this, and now the kid is dead. And a lot of people are like, I feel bad for her. Well, yes, a mother is grieving, but at the same time, that mother made a horrible decision. I do not feel bad. She was arrogant. She thumbed her nose to medicine. She ignored all the warning signs. She did nothing to help that child. She put herself and her experience in front of the needs of that child. And I don't care if you have kids or not, but as a mother, like, when you're pregnant, you don't think anymore about just yourself. Your life is no longer about you. I no longer make decisions just for myself. I'm a mom. I have a 6-year-old. Like, when he came into the world and when I got pregnant, I changed my entire life, my eating patterns. I went to the doctor. Like, you do those things because you want your baby to have a chance and be born healthy.
It's just like you said. I mean, you said it spot on. You're in charge of another person's care. Like, if you make the choice to bring a child into, especially that long, I mean, she was past due. So, like, the baby's here, and when it gets to that point, you should do everything that is humanly possible to bring that child in healthy. Like, that's your number, even above your own health. I think that at that point, you have an obligation to. Right.
I think if you talk to most women that go through childbirth, like, their experience is almost always secondary to ensuring that their child arrives, right? Because that's the ultimate goal.
Right. It now in terms of the legal thing, I think that something has to be done to prevent these organizations from growing and spreading that kind of message. Like, to me, that's ridiculous. And if you're in it, let's say that if you, because I don't think that you'll be able to get rid of home births as an option. I think that's one of those things that it's just it's a natural. I mean, I don't know how that works, if it's a natural right that you have to do, but if that's the case, then the hospital should be able to, either by law or some other way, send a nurse or somebody to your house to monitor and make sure that if things go awry, then they can, pull the switch and get you to a hospital, whether you like it or not.
I mean, I know women talk about how we don't want our uteruses to be legislated, but I kind of put my foot down when it comes to the health of a baby. And if it means that once I'm pregnant, if I go to term and I don't do what's right for that child. And I think there should be laws that, mothers should be, that child could have lived, right? Like there is zero reason why that baby should be dead. Zero.
Right.
That was a viable pregnancy. Yeah, and if she would have delivered that baby, like say she would have delivered that baby and it was born alive and it died an hour later and she didn't do anything to help it, she would have been charged with manslaughter. The only difference is that it died inside of her.
Exactly. And to me, it speaks volumes about the mindset when you're able to feel the baby essentially die while you're giving birth, because she said that she could feel it stop moving, and she laid there for another day. Right. I don't understand that. It makes no sense.
Well, and she literally only went for herself, right? And so then she praises like the hospital staff because they were so kind to her and they were so good to her. And, they brought roses and they played Tears in Heaven for her baby. And like, they were so loving, like the same people that for months and months and months, she said were horrible and didn't care about patients. And it's, the medical community is going to hurt us. These are the same people that with compassion and love, like were there for her and didn't make her feel bad when they probably could have. And you know what? Kudos to those care workers, because those doctors must have had things that they wanted to say that they didn't say, but they still treated her with dignity and respect. And I mean, that should say more than anything is that like what irritates me more than anything about these groups is not only the danger that they put in for the mothers and for the babies, but like how much crap they talk about the medical community. These are doctors that like sacrifice their adult lives to help mothers like me have children. They're on call for like weeks at a time.
Right. And it doesn't make her stance doesn't make any sense, because to me, it almost seems like she's trying to make an argument that she wants to go back to the way things were, back in our ancestors' time. But yet she's posting all of this on Facebook and YouTube. Like she's utilizing
the irony of right? Is that the irony?
To satisfy her vanity. She's being vain and she's being self-absorbed, and she's using modern day technology to post about what she's doing to go back to a naturalistic state. It's complete bullshit.
Right.
I mean, it's complete bullshit.
Yeah. Bullshit is a good word for that. I mean, it's hypocritical, right? Like, so she can have this whole hippy dippy life and like live off the grid, but then she has Wi-Fi. And in that one slide we were talking about where her friend came over to their house, they're watching the World Cup. Like, I'm sorry, but like you're off the grid, but you're watching the World Cup. Shut up. And like, it's just, like I said, it's hypocritical. Like the minute that the staff came in to help save her life, right? Her life. And that's what ultimately comes down to it. She only sought help when her life was in danger, not when the baby's life was in danger. And that's what's selfish about this.
What do you think the chances of her, if she's already talking about wanting to get pregnant again, her doing another natural birth? Has she hinted about that?
Well, here's the thing is like in all of those messages, she said, and this is the kicker that pisses me off to no end. She says that she knew that she was at risk for infections. She had a history of infections, and she knew that, but she was so stupid that she didn't realize that infection could infect the uterus. And because she's high risk for whatever infections these are, whether it's strep B or it's UTIs or who knows, she could have HPV, who knows? I don't know what she has. But because she has these infections, she cannot go unmonitored for any other pregnancies. The doctors told her as much. And so now she's like, now I have to be monitored and it'll be, a closer like relationship with doctors. Like, screw you. You knew you had infections and you didn't do anything for your first pregnancy.
The issue here is that she's getting so much attention from this one that I feel that that's going to be a motivating factor in her doing it again. Like she feels like she's emboldened now that people are following her story. But there's an interesting conversation that was kind of going on, and I saw not